Think about the last time you walked into an argument, knowing exactly what happened. You had the memory, you had the timeline, maybe you even had the screenshots sitting right there on your phone. And somehow, by the end of that conversation, you were the one apologizing. You weren't losing your mind, you were being worked. And tonight, I'm going to show you the exact 7 questions they used to do it. I want to talk about a feeling that almost nobody gets quite right when they try to describe it. It's not anger, it's not sadness, it's this fog. This disorienting, suffocating fog that settles over you after certain conversations with certain people. You walked in completely sure of yourself, clear, grounded, and you walked out questioning your own memory, your own character, your own sanity. Maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I really do overreact. Maybe I'm the problem. And the part that makes you want to scream when you finally step back and look at it is that you can't even explain how you got there. The conversation never felt like an attack. It felt like a discussion, a reasonable one even. It was just questions. Simple, reasonable-sounding questions that somehow, always, ended with you on the defensive, justifying yourself, apologizing for yourself, while whatever you originally came to address quietly left the room without a trace. That experience has a name. Psychologists call it cognitive dissonance, that grinding mental discomfort that happens when your direct experience of reality collides head-on with what someone else is aggressively insisting is true. And when that collision happens over and over again with someone who is skilled at manufacturing it, what erodes isn't just your confidence in a single memory, it's your ability to trust your own mind. Psychologist Dr. Jennifer Freyd documented a pattern she called DAVO: deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. What she found was that the person caught, the person who should be accountable, almost never just admits it. Instead, they perform a transformation. The confrontation becomes an interrogation of you. The script gets flipped so fast and so smoothly that you don't even register it happening until the conversation is already over. And their weapon of choice, the tool they reach for without even thinking, is not a statement. It's a question. Because a statement can be challenged. A question forces a response. You weren't confused because you were weak. You were confused because you were targeted by a technique refined across millions of human interactions to be nearly impossible to resist in real time. Until right now. Question 1. Why are you always so crazy, so emotional, so sensitive? This is the most common one on this list, and it's common for one simple reason. It works almost every single time. Look at what it does. In one sentence, it takes the entire subject of the conversation, their behavior, their lie, their action, and replaces it with a discussion of your mental and emotional state. You walked in to address something real. Now, you're defending your sanity. This is deflection through character assassination, and it works because most emotionally healthy people have a genuine fear of being seen as irrational. The moment someone plants that seed, you're acting crazy. Part of your brain immediately redirects, not toward the issue, toward proving you're not crazy. And while you're busy proving it, they're already free. When this one lands on you, refuse the bait entirely. Don't defend your emotions. Redirect. Something like, "My emotions aren't the topic. What I said happened, happened. Let's stay there." Short, calm. The frame stays exactly where you put it. Question 2. Are you really still bringing that up? Translation. Why haven't you gotten over the thing I did to you yet? Notice what this question never does. It doesn't deny that the thing happened. It doesn't apologize. It doesn't offer anything resembling accountability. It just asserts with total confidence that your decision to raise it is the problem. Your concern isn't the issue. You are the issue. You hold grudges. You can't let things go. And this question shows up most often from people who never actually resolved anything. There was no real repair, no changed behavior, just an unspoken expectation that time should have closed the wound they opened. The cleanest response cuts right through it. I'm bringing it up because it was never actually resolved. If it had been, I wouldn't need to. One sentence. The entire assumption collapses. Question 3. Why do you always have to make everything a big deal? Minimization and character indictment in the same breath. Not only is your concern being dismissed, you're being classified as someone who habitually creates drama. That word, always, is doing enormous work there. It's not responding to this moment. It's putting your entire pattern of behavior on trial. And here's why it lands so effectively. Most reasonable people desperately don't want to be the person who blows things out of proportion. So the question triggers this automatic self-audit. Am I overreacting? Is this actually a big deal? Am I being dramatic? While you're busy interrogating yourself, the real issue is gone. Linguist George Lakoff spent years studying how framing controls conversation outcomes. His research showed that whoever sets the frame wins. This question sets a frame where your concern is already classified as an overreaction, before you've said a single word in your defense. The move is to decline the frame without drama. This matters to me. Whether it feels big or small to you doesn't change that. You're not arguing about size. You're refusing to let someone else define what you're allowed to care about. Question 4. Do you know how exhausting you are? This is the cruelest one on this list, because it doesn't just deflect, it attacks your fundamental worth as a person to be around. And what makes it particularly vicious is the projection buried inside it. The person asking this question is almost always the exhausting one in the dynamic. They're the one whose behavior created the conflict. They're the one everyone around them has to carefully navigate. But by voicing the complaint first, they claim the victim role in the very dynamic they constructed. Now you're not talking about what you raised, you're defending your right to exist in the relationship. That fear of being too much, of being the difficult one, is something most people carry quietly. And a skilled manipulator knows exactly how to find it. There's also a quiet threat underneath this one. I might leave. You are pushing me to my limits. It's designed to trigger attachment anxiety, to make you start managing their feelings instead of addressing your own concerns. Your best weapon here is the pause itself. Silence. Let the questions sit in the air. Then, that's not something I'm going to engage with right now. I want to get back to what I actually brought up. The pause alone signals the question didn't land the way they hoped. Question 5. Why do you never trust me? Pay close attention here, because this one is used most frequently and most devastatingly by people who have given you every legitimate reason not to trust them. Your reasonable, evidence-based caution, the kind built from real experience with this specific person, gets reframed as your personal failing. Your trust issues, your baggage, your problem to examine and work through. The question performs a complete erasure of cause and effect. It treats your distrust as though it materialized from nowhere, as though it has no history behind it, no record, no pattern. It just deletes everything that happened before this moment. This appears most often in relationships where someone has already been caught lying. Each new instance of healthy skepticism gets treated as a fresh wound being inflicted on them, rather than a logical consequence of a pattern they built. The way through this is specificity. Manipulators live in the abstract, in vague character judgments and sweeping emotional claims. Your power is always in the concrete. I don't trust this specific thing because of this specific reason. Ground it, name it. The moment you get specific, the abstraction has nowhere to hide. Question 6. Why do you always have to bring up the past? This is the architectural cousin of question 2, operating on a much larger scale. Where that one targeted a single incident, this one attempts to seal the entire historical record. Everything before this moment declared irrelevant, off limits, unfair to raise. But here's the truth this question is designed to bury. The past is the only evidence you have. Patterns are made of history. Trust is built from track records. Your past experience with a person isn't bitterness, it isn't baggage, it is data. It is the most honest information you have about who they actually are, versus who they're performing to be right now. When someone tells you it's unfair to bring up the past, what they're actually asking is, please evaluate me with no context, no memory, no record of what I've already shown you I'm capable of. That is not a reasonable request. That is a request to be judged blind. I'm bringing it up because it's part of a pattern, not to punish you, but because it keeps happening. You're not living in the past. You're reading the evidence in front of you. Question 7. Why do you always assume the worst about me? The last question, the most sophisticated of all of them, because this one frames your accurate perception of someone as a psychological problem you've developed about them. You're not seeing clearly, it implies. You're filtering everything through a negative lens, looking for problems that aren't really there. And if that's true, then your concerns aren't evidence of their behavior, they're symptoms of your own distorted thinking. Dr. Robin Stern, whose research into gaslighting is some of the most cited in the field, describes what happens at this stage as the point where the target has been so thoroughly conditioned to doubt themselves that the manipulator barely has to work anymore. The person starts doing the gaslighting to themselves. Every concern that surfaces gets filtered through, but maybe I'm just assuming the worst again. The antidote, and the antidote to every question on this list, is returning to evidence. I'm not assuming, I'm responding to what I've actually observed. And specifically, here's what I mean. The concrete, the specific, the documented, that is your ground. And no question, no matter how sophisticated, can move you off it if you refuse to leave. So now that you can see all 7 of them clearly, how do you actually hold your ground in the middle of one of these conversations, in real time? Because knowing the tactics and staying grounded when they hit you are two completely different skills. And the gap between them is exactly where most people still get lost. The single most important shift you can make is this. Stop answering the question and start addressing what the question is doing. Every single one of these 7 questions has the same job. Pull you off the original topic. Get you onto defensive ground of their choosing. The moment you start justifying your emotions, proving your memory, or defending your character, you've already lost the frame. Instead, name what's happening. Not as an accusation, as a calm observation. I notice we've moved away from what I actually brought up. That feels like a deflection from what I said. You're not attacking them. You're simply refusing to be redirected. And that refusal, delivered without heat, is extraordinarily difficult to manipulate around. Because there's nothing to grab onto. You're just still standing exactly where you were. The second thing, and this sounds almost too simple, is to write things down before difficult conversations with people who have a history of these patterns. Not as ammunition, but because your written record is a reality anchor that exists outside the conversation, one that no question can rewrite in real time. Memory, in the heat of a manipulative exchange, can be shaken. Paper cannot. Third, learn to use the pause. These questions work partly because of speed. They land fast. Your nervous system reacts before your rational mind catches up. And suddenly, you're already defensive before you've even decided to be. Even 3 seconds of silence before you respond changes the entire dynamic. And finally, know when the most powerful response is no response at all. Some conversations with some people are not designed to reach understanding. They are designed to exhaust you, to run out the clock until you're too tired to keep holding your ground. In those moments, you are allowed to say, "I'm not continuing this conversation right now." And then follow through, without justifying it, without explaining it, without defending it. Just exit. The right conversations with the right people do not require you to constantly prove that your reality is real. Here's what I want you to take with you. The confusion you felt in those arguments where you somehow ended up apologizing for something that was done to you was not weakness. It was not proof that you're too emotional, too unstable, too much to handle conflict. It was the completely predictable response of a healthy mind, being deliberately disordered by someone who learned a long time ago that questions are more effective than lies. Because a lie can be disproven, but a question that makes you doubt yourself, that does the work from the inside. You have names for all 7 of them now, and a named thing carries far less power over you than an unnamed one. The fog doesn't work the same way once you can see exactly what's generating it. This isn't about becoming suspicious of everyone you meet. It's about building enough trust in your own perception that when these questions arrive, you recognize them before they pull you under. Your reality is real. Your memory is valid. Your concerns deserve to be addressed, not dismantled by someone who benefits from your confusion. Don't let them benefit anymore. If this video put language to something you've been living through, subscribe. Every week, we break down the psychology of manipulation and influence so you can spot it, name it, and protect yourself before it does its damage. And if you haven't watched The Art of Ignoring People yet, that one needs to be next. Because the moment you understand how strategic silence works as a weapon, and more importantly, how to stay completely unaffected when it's being used on you, you'll have two of the most important tools in dark psychology working in your favor at the same time. It's on screen right now. I'll see you there.